record it just so that I can remember that. Plus, if your kids are interested in mink farming, ever starting it up, we'll know
I
how
don't
to do
think
it.
so. I think they had enough of it.
Okay.
Oh, that's the fur activists kind of killed.
Yeah, let me just get one more thing here, and then I'll be right back.
Blue jay listening.
Hmm? Yeah.
He's eating off the ground.
I don't know if he's recording or not.
Oh, I don't think. I don't see no light. I'm still a little worried about that eagle.
Oh, he's fine.
I just said it needs too much.
Okay, this is actually a tape recorder too, so if I mess up with one, I've got the other. Let's see here.
You got us coming or going, huh?
Yeah. So, okay, what we're, I had put down some questions in case I didn't get going, but what I was interested in is doing a article in the, our newsletter for about mink farming, and as a kid I went out to Verle's pretty often because we were out to see the kids and the family, and so I kind of saw some of that, but I don't remember too much of it. And so before we get into that, maybe if you want to tell me, each of you, a little bit about your family, parents, or where you came from, and stuff like that, so we get the background.
Okay. Now, you want that now?
Sure, yeah.
My parents were Harold and Margaret Bernager, and we lived on the Rutch Place, just west of Bass Lake School. They did the first 4 years they were married, and I and Virgil were both born there.
Oh, right down the hill there.
Yeah, where Bennett
Oh.
lives. And then we moved out in the Barrens there on the Rob Perry farm, and we lived, well...
Do you know about when that would have been?
I think about 1929.
29.
And they rented until they bought the place in 1934.
Uh-huh.
And 1938, I think it was, that they started with the mink.
38. Uh-huh.
And,
So do you know why they moved out there? Most people were moving the other direction.
don't have a clue.
Yeah.
But,
Were the Perrys maybe related or something?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Yeah.
But Grandpa's lived on the sand, Elridge.
Oh, sure, right. And so they were familiar with...
And the sand is fine if you keep it built up.
Yeah.
Some people went out there and just crop, and didn't put anything back. But they always had good crops.
So your grandpa was Ellery.
Yeah.
And he lived where? Right on Roger Lake there, sort of.
Where Daniels live now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the big barn there.
Yeah, that
was
burned.
his. Yeah, and then there was a 2-story house up there too.
Yeah, I got a picture someplace. I don't know if I got that here.
Yeah.
Of the place too.
And then Ellery lived there, and then Eli lived across the road, was it? Or a little bit up further?
No, he lived where...
Sally.
He lived in Grantsburg. He had a confectionery in Grantsburg
for
I think it was 1915 when he moved back and bought the farm. I think that was part of the Orr farm.
Uh-huh.
He lives where Sally lives.
Oh, okay, that
Orr's,
house and barn there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Orr's lived across the road.
So, do you know if, like, your grandpa built those buildings up on the...
I'm sure he did. I couldn't verify that, I guess, but I'm sure that they did. Orr's, I would say, is probably the oldest buildings in this country.
Yeah.
They were up first, and And then Bert come up and he homesteaded up north of my folks. You know where that is?
Yeah, right on the
dead,
county line almost there.
yeah, on the dead end road and then north.
Yeah.
He homesteaded there, and then the Noises were homesteaded just across the road in the woods there. And that's, I suppose, where Hetty and Bert got.
Mhm.
And then they moved up on the county line. You know where that it was there?
Yeah, I actually,
That
right
old-
up on that,
By the Olsons,
yeah, they were,
across from our
Yeah.
land in Burnett County there.
mhm.
That's where they moved the second time, and then they moved north of Grantsburg. And that's where the Noises went. And
Yeah,
I think they came up, I think, in 1873, if I'm not mistaken, the Noises. And Bert, it was in the early 1903 when Ellery's come up.
uh-huh.
And Bert's come somewhere around that time, and
Yeah.
then George come afterwards, I think, a little bit later, and then John stayed down in Iowa on the home farm in Iowa.
So have you been down to Iowa to see the,
Oh yeah,
uh-huh,
oh yeah. And the cemetery's right across the road.
yeah. You said, I've been at that cemetery, but I was never quite sure where the
Oh, it's
Bernizer
right
farm
across
was.
the road.
Well, it's right across the road,
Yeah.
okay. I know, I think they said that,
It was part of the Bernizer
yeah,
farm.
that was the cemetery was.
Some
yeah.
of the old timers or something, or I suppose they weren't then, but the people lived there. Their kids died and they didn't have any place to bury them, so that's how they started the
Oh,
cemetery.
uh-huh.
And some of the Carnses are built in
Yeah.
are in that cemetery
Yeah.
too.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
and that's pretty good farmland down there.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
nice.
it was.
Yeah.
And that was Eli. His name was Eli too.
He looked like him
My
too.
grandpa Stead name was Eli also,
Yeah.
and then there was Eli Jr.
Yeah, you know, I should mention this too, is Ione has been cleaning out, and Shirley and the
Mhm.
Christiansens, and they have these pictures that are, she said, either Bernizers or Noises. And they were looking for a home, so they put them out, they put them in a box and gave some to us, and I had shared some copies of them with Joyce Bernizer, but probably they belong in some Bernizer thing, so if you think about who would like those.
Well, I would even like a
Yeah, okay,
copy
well, I
of
was
them,
going to say, we have them, they aren't identified as the problem, and they're from Iowa probably, and they thought they were probably Bernizers, but they
Mhm.
said, well, we don't know who they are,
Mhm.
and we're all getting old, and we don't, you know, anyway, so, so I have those out of Cushing there, but
Oh, okay.
I'll remember that.
Mhm.
Okay, so now I'll switch over to the Bergstroms. Now, that sounds like a Scandinavian.
Well, Swede anyway.
Uh-huh.
Well, my folks were Paul and Anna Bergstrom. She was a Rumeline before. She lived right up the hill away from here. Paul was born in, well, I don't know, Sterling, I think. I ain't sure.
Yeah, out on the sand, I think.
Yeah.
They're across from George Williamson's,
Oh, uh-huh.
back in the woods there.
And Paul, and so that's your dad.
Yeah.
And was your grandpa here too, or?
Bergstrom,
Yeah.
Not Bergstrom, he died,
1892.
can't remember.
But he came to America too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then you, and how many brothers and sisters did you have? I know you had Virgil, so,
Mhm.
but how many brothers and sisters?
Well, I had Margaret, Milton, Merlin, Majel,
And yourself.
and myself. I'm the only one left.
Yeah. So Paul Bergstrom, was he the well man?
Yeah, he worked it well. And Uncle Axel Bergstrom, he was in it before. And he is trashed too.
Mm-hmm.
He worked in wells as many years as I can remember. And then Paul got it after, well, it was after Axel died, then he started, you know.
I was trying to remember. I think Paul did our well one time, maybe in the
It-
50s. Would it be?
Could be. I
Or
wasn't with.
maybe it was Axel. I don't remember. I was just going to say would they still been doing it in the 50s?
No, Axel
Oh.
died in 46.
Oh, okay.
So-
That was in that truck accident, right?
Mhm.
Nicholson.
Yeah. Maybe it was in the 30s, because what they said was is in the 30s the well went dry, so this Bergstrom came out, and the well on this place had been a hand dug one, and so he drove 8 feet down with a pipe below the casing end, and then they had water that
Yeah.
way, and that's what we still got. And I've got the guy coming out this summer to see if we can do a submersible pump to replace what this Bergstrom had, because since then they've always done the same thing, is driven this down below the casing.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so now I'll switch. So when you were living out there is when you started the Mink? Or
About
your dad?
1938, I think it was.
And can you remember how that came about, that your dad got started in it?
Well, I got an article there that he wrote.
Oh.
Well, he trapped mink and beaver and that. I mean, that was kind of our livelihood in the wintertime, because, back then your cows didn't
Mhm.
milk so much in the wintertime as they did in the summer, because they didn't push them like they do
Yeah.
now. And so many years I can remember, he trapped, and it was beaver hides and mink and weasels and,
So did he trap like in the Trade River area there, or what?
well, clear back as far as the St. Croix, I think
Oh,
he
okay,
went.
yeah.
It was every day he went on the trap line,
Uh-huh.
and nights he skinned the animals and put them on boards and so forth. He had talked to somebody, I guess, that had raised mink or something, and he was interested in them, so he got. Maybe could read that thing there. It might.
I'll copy that one. So I'll copy that as part of what we're doing,
Okay.
and then I'll just do that later. But you remember when he started
Yeah.
raising them?
I was with him every day, helping feed the mink from the time he got them.
So where did he get them?
I think out by Rhinelander or someplace out there. I think maybe it was where he got the first ones. It said something about him trading something,
Uh-huh.
coon, because we had some coon before that. And,
Oh, you were raising those for
well, I
fur?
don't know if they were wild ones or what. That he had they were
Uh-huh.
in cages, and he was always interested in animals.
So did he try any others besides raccoons, like fox or something, or?
No, we never
Oh,
had.
he had a couple of fox, didn't he?
Well, it could be. I
I
don't
remember that shed up in Mink yard.
Maybe
Yeah.
he did. I don't know.
I don't know
Well,
how.
I was just curious on the getting started. He just thought that because he was used to the skinning him and that maybe he could raise them.
It was something, I don't know, that just
Uh-huh.
told him that, and he started out with just a few, and it went from there, and he went to a lot of shows there, they did, and he had a good eye for mink. I mean, for the,
For-
I used to help him grade after we got going, and he would grade the mink and look at the fur and and throw out the poor ones and keep the good ones, and like you do in cows or something else, and he done that, and then he took them to shows, and he took a lot of ribbons at shows, and in later years he even was a judge at the shows.
So now he started, you said, in 38,
Yeah.
and he kept expanding them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what kind of numbers of mink did he raise?
Do you remember how many?
Well, no, not except, but I think he had about the same as the rest of us, didn't he?
We had 1,700 at one time, and I
Oh.
suppose it was somewhere in the ballpark there. That the three of us, after we started in Virgil, the three of us fed the same diet. We figured the diet out, and so we fed exactly the same, and everything, and had the same breeding stock. So when we took them down to the fur auctions, we could bundle them all together, and you get bigger bundles, you get better price, because you
Uh-huh.
had enough to make a coat or something.
Uh-huh.
So that's how, I mean, it was called the Evergreen Fur Farms, but we were each separate, but still we worked together and fed our mink the same and everything.
So while Harold was starting this, were there any other people around here at early like that were raising furs, or?
I would say Herman Johnson probably. I don't know just who started first, but and our garden Quist had it, but I think they were later.
Later, yeah.
Merle Lee in St. Croix had mink, but he was later. I think he got breeding stock from us. And I think Harold Fisk
Harold Fisk had something.
Had mink, and Reynold Norling over here had mink, but they were all later than.
Did they go very big into it? I remember
not as big.
Yeah, I remember Harold having them at Wolf Creek there because we went to school there, but I couldn't remember how many.
I don't remember how many he had either, but he wasn't so able-bodied, so I don't imagine he had a terrible amount of them.
Virgil Anderson had them.
Yeah, but Art Wagenius up at Grantsburg had, but they were all. I don't think any of them were in it when we started.
So you think they were in it maybe in the 50s?
Yeah, probably. Herman, I don't know. He might have, it was probably in the 40s, I would say. I can't remember when he started, but Herman was big. And then there was in Frederick, there was a fox ranch.
Oh.
William France, up beyond the water tower to the left, down in behind there, and then Roy Bond bought it afterwards, and then they changed over to mink afterwards, and got rid of the fox, I guess.
So then, did you have a local organization of mink raisers, or?
Not really, but we had association of GMA and. There was a couple associations that we belonged to.
So the next part of this is, can you tell me about the sort of the life cycle of a mink from?
Yep. Yeah. Breeding season is March 1st to towards the end of March. The kits are born first days of May, sometimes the last days of April, and they're big enough to pelt in November.
How many mink babies?
Average is 4. My dad had a litter of 17. I think it's a world's record litter. I don't know if it still holds. I got a picture of that too here. Huh. So.
And is that what you were aimed for? Hope that you'd get 4 average?
Yeah, you got to get a fair average. Otherwise, you can't. Make it. It's like everything else. You got to. You got to have something to sell.
So that was They were born in April?
In the last days of April or first days of May.
And they were ready for skin about
in November. Yeah, about
they got a nice
Thanksgiving
thick
time.
pelt by then.
Yeah. They were born in May, and about in July we separated them away from the mothers. Put one in a pen then, and then.
So did they nurse for the first part?
Oh yeah, and then they grow like little weeds because they look like a baby mouse without no hair or something when they're born.
Huh.
They're just a little thing, but.
And what were the things that made it, or what were the problems that were with raising those? What kind of things, like disease?
You had to have strictly fresh meat because if it was spoiled, poisoning would kill them. If it was hot, you watered every hour. If they didn't have water, fresh water, they'd die. So, and you had to know a little bit what you're doing, so it wasn't like somebody milking cows or something. You could get somebody to do with it. So, Virgil's and us used to trade. They'd take care of our ranch and theirs, and then we'd take care of theirs when they went, so we could each get a little week vacation during the summer. So, and the folks done all the going to the shows. We stayed home and took care of all the ranches, and so they had a show at Phillips, Wisconsin. They used to go every year. he won a lot of ribbons, especially on the black mink and some on the brown mink and that over the years.
So both your dad and mom both were involved in it pretty much.
Yeah,
And I think did I ask you about your mother, who she was?
she's the Carlson, Charles Carlson. They lived up at one time where Orville and Orrin lived. Back in the woods there was south of there was a house. And that's where the later years my grandparents lived. He died in 1933, my grandpa. They lived up north of Grantsburg before that. She was a buck.
Okay.
And she's related to the Roberts, which are
So not related to the noises and the
yeah,
yeah.
they're all
Yeah.
related, entangled
Yeah.
some way.
So, okay, so let's go with the food. Now, I can remember going out to Virgil's, and he had this big grinder set up with a Model A engine or something, and that he ground up meat. I think he had it frozen. He had a big frozen thing.
Yeah, you had
Is
to
that-
keep it frozen.
Is that the same thing? When you started, how did you do it?
We put up ice in the wintertime and had oil barrels, these 50-gallon, and we put them in and put ice around them and put the meat in them.
And
That's how we kept it.
Where did you put your ice up from? Do you remember?
The lake, Bass Lake, some of it,
It was
and some of it there was a beaver pond. The later years down just south of the folks on the road that goes by Weese's down
Mhm.
in the.
There's a little stream through there.
Yeah, well, it was back in. There was a beaver dam, and it was it was big, and we cut ice in there. And we had an ice house, and we put ice in up every winter, and put sawdust on that. You kind of wonder how you done all this stuff, but we didn't have any electricity, so we got married.
Hmm.
It was 1952 when they got electricity out there.
So, now my dad said that when he got rid of his horses, he sold them
Mhm.
to Harold because he said, I don't want my horses to be mistreated. I'd
Mhm.
like to have them,
Mhm.
and-
We butchered.
Yeah,
I got a picture or two of a bunch of horses he's got here.
yeah, and so he bought horses, and then as they needed them, you could butcher a
'em,
horse
yeah,
and grind it up.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and a lot of them we bought, and they wanted them shot right on the farm so that they
Mhm.
know, And Virgil done a lot of the butchering too, and I even helped some.
So one decent-sized workhorse, would that feed 1,700 mink for a while, or several?
It took, I don't know, did you
Well,
answer
I
that?
don't think so. It'd be just a day or two, wouldn't it?
I would
At
think,
once.
well, maybe a little longer, maybe a week possibly, because we mixed other stuff with it.
Yeah.
We used to get us prepared cereal, now we fed vitamins with it, and some chicken byproducts and fish and stuff that mixed it. But the big percentage of our food was horse meat, and so that was pretty
Mhm.
much the diet.
Let's see here. So, did they get, besides the food poisoning and the water, was there any other
Oh, we had distemper,
distemper?
yes.
So,
We had it once a year. So we were a no-no to the rest of the ranches for a while. Well, there's animals and stuff that crawl over and I think we vaccinated 2 or 3 times that year, didn't we?
Yeah.
But we finally got it out of there. But I mean, they just get like a fit and die with that. So there's things you got to watch out for.
mhm. So now I'm going to switch over to Myron here. So you married into the mink business, is that right?
Yeah, I guess so. I
So-
got her.
So when did you get married? When did you two get married? What year?
1947,
Yeah, but
October
over what?
4th.
Okay. I was just going to check
So-
and see
so-
if you knew.
So did you move right here then, or?
Yep.
And then did you start mink farming right away, or?
No, I think it was probably a year or so.
Yeah,
wasn't
a
it?
year after we had it, then we had some.
We had a little mink yard right down here. Got a
By the
picture.
house here.
The house here first, and then we expanded out there.
So,
And it just got bigger.
And,
yeah, but you also had cows too, and
Yeah, we had cattle and tried to farm too.
uh-huh.
we had milk cows.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot, you know.
Basically, what we had the cows for was bought our groceries and that,
Mhm.
and then the other went from there. So
And then we had the kids. They done quite a bit of chores.
the kids were good to help.
Yep.
with the
Both
Mink,
the mink
too.
and the cows.
so so what would for instance like Judy do? Would she do the? Did you have automatic watering or did you?
No,
No, not a hose.
Oh, so you had to go
Pull the
down the line.
yep,
Okay, and the mink all lived in these shaded sheds, right?
yeah. In the
Yep.
beginning they didn't, but afterwards they did. And when we started, then they were
Open.
open and outside, but it was easier to take care of them when they were underneath.
And so, can you describe what a mink pen was like? Besides the long roof.
I think
Well, it
what
was-
the mink lived in?
Yeah.
Well, that was a 4 by, what was it, 18 wide,
And
12 inches high?
and 4 feet long.
Yeah, and then a house on the end of it.
So that was wood house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wood and wire.
And then hardware cloth type wire
Yeah,
for the
Well,
floor.
No, well, in the spring we put
false bottoms
false
in.
bottoms on with hardware cloth, and then we take them out because otherwise it gets so dirty, you know.
Yeah.
And when they got big enough, the kits, then we take them out and, so that the droppings would go through.
Otherwise the mink babies would fall through the
We'd
wire.
put them in the middle of April and leave them in probably a month or 6 weeks or something like that.
So they were so small they could actually
Oh
go
yeah,
through.
oh yes. Once in a while, one of them would go through that.
Huh.
They were little, especially when you have 17 of them. You know, it's
So could you put the cages so that the mink were right next to each other? Or
Yeah.
did you have to?
yeah.
A little bit between so they couldn't fight.
Yeah. And then they the ones that you put the young ones in were the similar types. Did you separate them all?
Yeah,
Each of the young ones?
yeah. Each one had a pen. We made colonies, what we call the 4 in a bunch. We rolled them
Rolled
out
the
and
wire.
bent it, and then used C-clips and done the bottoms. And if they ever got a little rust on them, we'd have to change them. We could take the bottom out and put a new bottom in. But that's what the young ones were in, and they had a smaller house, where the other ones were.
Oh,
The
yeah.
breeding house was bigger, so they could have their kits in it.
So did they get away very often?
Well, once in a while, we picked one up down at Marie Olson's down by Cushing one time. They were over to Russell Gustafson's to visit, and evidently one of them had got out, and must have got under the hood or something with their car, and they went home with them
It was 2 o'clock we caught that one.
in the morning.
Huh.
But not very often they got out, but
But
We-
if one got out, it was always ours. That's what they'd say. But it wasn't always. There's wild mink too, you know.
Sure.
that one was ours, so.
So now that's another question is do mink ever get sort of tame, or are they always going to bite you if you?
Well, I wouldn't trust them too far. They're